Call to order the school committee meeting for Tuesday, March 25th. All rise for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody.
So I got the crackle bean.
My agenda back to life. Tonight we have a little bit different format on our agenda in that we're going to deal with the open meeting law complaints first, and then we'll go into the rest of the agenda. Because the response came back as there were two open meeting law complaints, and but they essentially have the same points in them, so the response is a single response. What I will do is I will read the response. We will take a vote on it, on the one response that was addressed to the four members of the committee that are present right now. And then we will have the subcommittee open their meeting, and they can take the vote on the response that was against the complaint filed against them.
Yeah.
That will be the process. Any questions on the process?
Nope.
Okay.
All right.
Let me get my throat cleared and you're ready to read. This is a response from, let me just get the name right, Attorney Lauren Galvin. I'm with Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, Lehane. And it is, Dear Sir or Madam, first of all, it's a response to open meeting law complaints against the Stoughton School Committee and Community Relations Subcommittee from Ms. Patricia McNeil and Mr. Joaquin Soares. Dear Sir or Madam, the Stoughton School Committee, hereinafter School Committee, received the attached open meeting law complaints from Ms. Patricia McNeil, hereinafter Ms. McNeil, and Mr. Joaquin Soares, hereinafter Mr. Soares, alleging that the School Committee and Community Relations Subcommittee, hereinafter Subcommittee, violated the open meeting law pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 23B. A copy of these complaints are attached hereto as Exhibit A. We are responding on behalf of the School Committee and Subcommittee based upon inquiry to these committees. As will be discussed in detail below, the complaints allege that the Subcommittee and the School Committee violated the open meeting law, hereinafter OML, when a community relations specialist was hired by the superintendent. After reviewing the facts and the law in this matter, the School Committee and Subcommittee respectfully submit that there was no violation of the OML, as it is not within the jurisdiction of the School Committee or the Subcommittee to hire the community relations specialist, and no quorum of either body ever met to review resumes or made any recommendations to the superintendent regarding candidates for the community relations specialist position. Therefore, the Division of Open Government should decline to investigate this matter. Facts. Number one, the Stoughton School Committee is a 5-member board. The members of the school committee are Ms. Joyce Husseini, Chair, Ms. Deborah Sauvanet, Vice Chair, hereinafter Ms. Sauvanet, Dr. Carol Brown, hereinafter Dr. Brown, Mr. George Dolinsky, and Dr. Erda Murrell. The members of the subcommittee are Ms. Sauvanet and Dr. Brown. Number two, the 2013-2014 school department budget voted on by Stoughton Town Meeting created the position of Community Relations Specialist. Number three, the superintendent is employed by the school committee and manages the school district in a fashion consistent with state law and the policy determinations of the school committee. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 71, the superintendent hires and fires all district personnel with the exception of certain positions specifically designated to be appointed by the school committee. The school committee does not have authority to hire the community relations specialist. It is therefore the superintendent's job to hire the community relations specialist. Number four, on October 17th, 2013, the job of community relations specialist for the Stoughton Public Schools was advertised by the superintendent of the Stoughton Public Schools, Dr. Marguerite Rizzi, hereinafter superintendent. On October 24th, 2013, Ms. Sauvanet and Dr. Brown attended a Massachusetts Association of School Committee-sponsored training on communications at the Cameron Middle School in Framingham. School committee members from all over the state attended this training. Number six, at the November 12th, 2013 school committee meeting, discussions took place regarding individual members' interest in subcommittees. Number seven, On November 26, 2013, the school committee appointed its members to subcommittees. Dr. Brown and Ms. Sauvanet were appointed to the subcommittee. To date, this subcommittee has never held a meeting. Number 8, the subcommittee is charged with the following. A, expand communication opportunities for the community, staff, and students that improve knowledge about and support from the Stoughton Public Schools. B, build public understanding and trust from the Stoughton Public Schools through an effective public communications program. C, consider applicants by residents for appointment by the school committee to advisory and other committees and forward recommendations to the full school committee. D, ensure district representation for the community programs and organizations. The subcommittee is not charged with hiring the community relations specialist. It could not because only the superintendent is authorized to hire the community relations specialist under state law. Number 9, on approximately January 3rd, 2014, the superintendent's assistant sent resumes to Ms. Sauvanet and Dr. Brown from candidates for the community relations specialist position. Number 10, Ms. Sauvanet called Dr. Brown to confirm she had received the resumes to find out if the subcommittee could find a date to meet to discuss the resumes. The subcommittee could not find a date to meet and discuss the resumes prior to the interview of the candidates. Therefore, the two members of the subcommittee never reviewed the resumes together. Number 11, one interview for the position of community relations specialist was held on January 9th and 2 interviews were held on January 10th. The superintendent held the interviews. Ms. Sauvanet sat in on the interviews. No other school committee member or subcommittee member was present at any of the interviews. Number 12, on January 15th, 2014, the superintendent hired one of the 3 candidates who had interviewed for the community relations specialist position. The superintendent hired her just like she would fill any other position that she is charged with filling. The school committee and the subcommittee never met to discuss the candidates and did not give a recommendation to the superintendent regarding this position. Discussion. The OML complaint of Ms. McNeil alleges the Stoughton School Committee clearly violated the open meeting law when they took a vote on the community relations position. The OML complaint of Mr. Soares similarly alleges that the subcommittee of the Stoughton School Committee met to discuss the applicants' resumes for the job of community relations specialist and made recommendations to the superintendent. These allegations are unfounded because, as will be discussed below, hiring the community relations specialist is not within the jurisdiction of the school committee or the subcommittee. Additionally, neither the school committee nor the subcommittee ever met to discuss the resumes of candidates for the community relations specialist position or made any recommendation to the superintendent regarding such position. Number 1, there was no violation of the OML as hiring the community relations specialist is not within the jurisdiction of the school committee or the subcommittee. The open meeting law defines a meeting as a deliberation by a public body with respect to any matter within the body's jurisdiction. Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 18, emphasis added. Furthermore, deliberation is defined as an oral or written communication through any medium, including electronic mail, between or among a quorum of a public body or any public business within its jurisdiction. As will be explained, hiring the community relations specialist is not within the jurisdiction of the school committee or the subcommittee, thus there is no violation. The superintendent is employed by the school committee and manages the school district in a fashion consistent with state law and the policy determination of the school committee. Under Mass General Laws, Chapter 71, the superintendent hires and fires all district personnel with the exception of certain positions specifically designated to be appointed by the school committee. Mass General Law, Chapter 71, subsection 59B. The school superintendent of a city or town may also appoint administrators or other personnel not assigned to particular schools at levels of compensation determined in accordance with the policies established by the school committee. The school committee does not have the authority to hire the community relations specialist. Hiring the community relations specialist is within the sole jurisdiction of the superintendent. Additionally, the subcommittee does not have any jurisdiction to hire the community relations specialist. Ms. McNeil attaches to her complaint the following duties of the subcommittee. A, expand communication opportunities for community staff and students that improve knowledge about and support for the Stoughton Public Schools. B, build public understanding and trust from the Stoughton Public Schools through any effective public communications program. C, consider applicants by residents for appointment to the school committee by the school committee to advisory or other committees and forward recommendations to the full school committee. D, ensure district representation for the community programs and organizations. The subcommittee was not charged with hiring the community relations specialist and could not because only the superintendent is authorized to hire such position under state law. It is not within the jurisdiction of the school committee or the subcommittee to hire the community relations specialist. Thus, there is no possible violation of the open meeting law. Number 2, there was no deliberation of a quorum of the school committee or the subcommittee. Ms. Patricia McNeil alleges in her complaint that the subcommittee reviewed resumes and selected a candidate. Mr. Soares similarly alleges in his complaint that Ms. Sauvanet and Ms. Brown admitted that they have discussed resumes and made recommendations. These allegations are quite simply not true. No meeting of a quorum of the school committee or of the subcommittee ever occurred to discuss the resumes and candidates for the community relations specialist, and no recommendation was made to the superintendent about who she should hire to fill the position. A meeting is defined in pertinent part pursuant to the open meeting OML as a deliberation by a public body with respect to any matter within the body's jurisdiction. Citing Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 18, with emphasis added. Deliberation is defined as an oral or written communication through any medium, including electronic mail, between or among a quorum of a public body on any public business within its jurisdiction, provided, however, that deliberation shall not include the distribution of a meeting agenda, scheduling information, or distribution of other procedural meeting, or the distribution of reports or documents that may be discussed at a meeting, provided that no opinion of a member is expressed. Additionally, the OML defines quorum as follows: a simple majority of the members of a public body, unless otherwise provided in a general or special law, executive order, or other authorizing provision. Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 18. Thus, the general rule is a board or committee must have a simple majority present to act or conduct business. The school committee consists of 5 members, therefore a quorum of the school committee is 3. The subcommittee has 2 members, and thus a quorum of the subcommittee is 2 members. Ms. Sauvanet called Dr. Brown to confirm that she had received the resumes and tried to set up a date to meet as a subcommittee to discuss the resumes. However, they could not find a date that they were both available before the interviews. Therefore, only Ms. Sauvanet was involved in the interviews. Neither the subcommittee nor the school committee deliberated on a recommendation of a candidate and never made a recommendation to the superintendent. The superintendent made the hiring decision without input from either committee. The OML specifically states that a deliberation shall not include scheduling information or the distribution of reports or documents that may be discussed at a meeting, provided that no opinion of a member is expressed. Therefore, when Ms. Sauvanet simply called Dr. Brown to confirm she had received the resumes and to see if there was any date that the subcommittee could meet, there was no violation of the open meeting law, as there was no deliberation of public business within the subcommittee's jurisdiction. Additionally, when Ms. Sauvanet attended the interviews, there was no violation of the open meeting law, as there was less than a quorum of both the subcommittee and the school committee. OML 2010-7, Walpole Board of Selectmen, Office of the Attorney General, Division of Open Government, December 28, 2010. Attorney General found that the board did not violate the open meeting law when 2 members of a 5-member board, I'm almost done, discussed the issue as 2 members was not a quorum. The only person who attended the interview was Ms. Sauvanet, and she did not discuss the interview or resumes with any other member of the school committee or subcommittee. As such, there was no violation of the OML. And number 3, there is no violation of the OML when less than a quorum of a committee attends a training session. Finally, Mr. Soares alleges in his complaint that Ms. Sauvanet and Ms. Brown admitted a subcommittee meeting took place. Furthermore, Superintendent Risley falsely argued that since the subcommittee of 2 does not constitute a quorum of the full committee, subcommittees would not be subject to open meeting law. This untrue. Ms. Sauvanet and Dr. Brown admitted they attended a Mass Association of School Committees sponsored training on communication at the Cameron Middle School in Framingham on October 24, 2013. The attendance of Ms. Sauvanet and Dr. Brown at this training was not a violation of the OML for the following reasons. First, it is not a violation of the OML for a committee to attend a training session. As per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 18B. Meetings shall not include attendance by a quorum or a public body at a meeting or private gathering, including conference or training program, or a media, social, or other event, so long as the members do not deliberate. Additionally, the subcommittee was not formed until November 26, 2013, more than a month after the training, and thus there was no quorum of the subcommittee at the training session. Additionally, attendance by 2 members is not a quorum of the school committee, thus there is no OML violation. Conclusion. Neither the school committee nor the subcommittee violated the OML, as hiring the community relations specialist was not within their jurisdiction. Neither body ever met to vote on the recommendation for this position, and attendance by less than a quorum of a school committee at a training program is not an OML violation. Thus, the school committee and the subcommittee request that the Division of Open Government decline to investigate this matter and dismiss the attached complaints. Sincerely, Lauren Galvin. Thank you.
There's a lot.
It's a lot of them. But what we are going to do now is we have the two complaints in front of us, one of them against 4 of the members of the committee and one against just the members of the subcommittee. As we are at this point, the full committee in session, we are discussing the complaint by Mr. Soares, which is against Ms. Sauvanet, Dr. Brown. Oh, I'm sorry, we're discussing the one by Ms. McNeil, which is against Ms. Sauvanet, Dr. Brown, myself, and Mr. Zielinski, and Dr. Rizzi. So we will, I'll open it up for discussion, and then I will ask that we vote on accepting.
So you wanna, just for procedure, I like my new place, by the way, thank
Good.
you.
You're welcome.
I'm getting more important, approaching the power here. Power here, power here, man. So you wanna review both complaints and then do the vote on the letter, or I thought you just wanted to vote on Ms. McNeil's.
Because we are voting, the response was to both complaints joint, since the points in each complaint were the same. So there is one response that was filed. I want a vote from each committee, both the full committee and the subcommittee, since there were complaints against each one individually, as to their comments and a vote on the response.
So,
Ms. Sauvanet.
motion to approve the response?
And I know that there are some changes that you would like to have made. And am I looking for a second so we can discuss?
I'll second it,
Okay.
so we can discuss.
Okay, discussion.
You wanna go first?
No.
Okay, there was a number of typos in this, and I just,
Okay.
my first of a question, though.
Okay.
As this is a draft, will any corrections we make to this will be forwarded to the attorney?
Absolutely.
Okay. On page 1, 2, I guess it's page 3, the second line down, it says, where it says consider applicants by residents, shouldn't that be applications rather than applicants?
Yeah, good point, George.
Right here. I'm just, because it does,
there.
applicants are
Right, people.
people rather than
I will,
something that's been done. And then on the next page, flipping over, the next page, again, in the paragraph additionally, section C, in that paragraph, it says consider applicants again. It should be applications.
George, where is the page? You said page
The
3?
third page, 1, no, 2, it's behind that other page, whatever.
it's
page?
under point number 1. Down in the last paragraph, or second to last paragraph of that one.
Okay, and then it says,
Just one second.
in section C in that paragraph, okay? And then also further down on that page, again, on the last sentence, it says, Mrs. Soares similarly alleges that her
His,
complaint
yeah.
should be his. Okay, since he didn't go through an operation. And then on
Hey,
the
that's not right.
last page, again in section 3, it says, finally, Mrs. Soares alleges in her, it should be his complaint. Okay?
Okay.
And then
Where's the last one, George?
On that
in
section.
section 3, on the last page of the on the answer, flip over,
Right, him. All of them.
For her.
okay? And then also in that same paragraph in section 3, 1, 2, 3, for I'm not sure if this is correct, it says this untrue. Is it this is untrue, or
I think it's this untrue comma.
True comma.
is that correcting? I mean, I'm not
think it
sure.
should be
Or
this
is
is
it
untrue.
this?
Is.
Needs a verb.
This is untrue, or should it read, or this?
This is untrue.
I will add is. It's lawyer speak, but I will add the
I'm
is.
definitely not a lawyer. You can tell from that. And those are the only corrections that I picked up on, Madam Chairman.
Anybody else have any comments? I actually do know that there was a case or two as I was reading where I changed a Mr. to a Ms. or
Did I
vice
miss
versa
something?
as I was reading.
I couldn't-
Should have marked them. There's inconsistent title to Dr. Brown throughout, both going back between Dr. and Ms.,
Yeah, I didn't like that at all.
which I will.
Yeah, so just ask her to
Yep.
change that to Dr. Brown. The other thing is that I'm not vice chair, George is.
You were not
Yeah,
vice chair,
yeah,
that's a
that's
good
right.
point.
Sorry about that. I did miss that one.
Yeah.
I caught that right away.
where's
It's
that?
right under facts.
I'll let you have the title.
Yours.
Thank you, temporarily.
All right. Do we have any further changes or discussion?
All set.
I had a discussion.
Okay.
I mean, the way this will evolve is we already spent the lawyer money to get this thing drafted. I don't know how much they charge us. I would have preferred that, you know, we, the chair, negotiate or talk to the complainants. And, you know, they are making some requests. Some of them are really drastic. Some of them are not that drastic, like going through open meeting law training. I think it's good for every committee. So before spending this money, I would have just talked to the complainants because, I mean, I remember that part of the meeting. It was, I asked Dr. Brown and Ms. Sauvigny, you know, where did they meet, and they did. So it was pretty obvious on the tape, and then I said, and Ms. Sauvigny said, why? And then I said, that's an open meeting law violation. So, I mean, the video of the meeting speaks for itself. So the point is, I would have much rather have the, instead of authorizing the lawyers to spend the billable hours on this, I would have just negotiated with the complainants to see if we can resolve this for the benefit of the town.
Dr. Earl, I respectfully disagree that the tape was very clear because you actually kind of forced me into a position of having to go to the lawyers by publishing a blog which stated things, including interpreting my reaction and intervening to explain it as somehow cover up for a lie. And I absolutely resent that implication.
What was a lie?
You had, in your blog, mentioned that by my jumping in to explain that the meeting was in fact the training session that they went to prior to the subcommittee, you said that I was seeing that there was a mistruth or something being spoken. I can't recall how your blog said it. So I took this complaint very seriously, and by saying we simply should follow the recommendations when there were allegations made here that simply weren't true, I felt it was important to involve the attorney in this.
It would have been better, like, if the whole school committee decided whether to involve the lawyer or not before
That's
we.
my prerogative to do that. I'm sorry.
So that's why I guess, you know,
Yeah.
I'm the longest serving member of this board, but I was never given an opportunity to serve as a chair. But that's set aside. So it is what it is. There is the video. There is the statement from the lawyer. So right now it's up to the Attorney General's office to decide what is the outcome.
That is correct.
There is still, I guess, you know, there is still some room for negotiations if you want to do that. I mean, you can still approve this. But after they send their response to the Attorney General, or before they send their response to the Attorney General, you know, talk to them, see if there is, we can resolve this without further escalating it.
I'm not sure how submitting this would further escalate it.
Well, then now, if it goes to the Attorney General's office, then, you know, they'll look at the video, and they'll look at the credibility of the timeline given in here, which as a school committee member, I don't know this timeline to be true. because we don't have information flow within the school committee. If we had plenty of information in the school committee, I would say, okay, here we go. This is
Can I ask, what is it about the timeline you don't think to be true? Because I actually went to the MASC website to look up the date of the communications workshop, which preceded the dates in our minutes, which said when we discussed and when we formed the committees. So those are really the pertinent dates in the timeline, and I'm not sure if I could find that information publicly, why you believe it not to be true and something that we...
No, there are statements made at the meeting, which is on a video record, and statements are being made here, like Ms. Soveny and Dr. Brown. Sorry, thank you. Dr. Brown did not do certain things. So, the Attorney General's office will look at it and render a decision.
Okay.
So we can avoid that if you want to. That's my point.
Mrs. Amy,
Ms. Soveny.
wanting something to be true doesn't make it true.
That's my point exactly.
These are simply the facts, and what this is going to cost the taxpayers is somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000. Now, there were 2 open meeting complaints last year that you made against the school committee that were also dismissed, but not before they cost the taxpayers almost $6,000, adding to what is a tally that is now approaching $30,000 of wasted money. So
I think Ms. Soveny is not telling the truth. Let me address it, because she made some false allegations. Last year, I did not make 2 complaints. I don't know if I made any complaints to last year.
Yeah, there were
but
2.
There was 1 complaint. I made it to the school committee, not to the Attorney General's office. And Ms. Soveny, again, took the luxury of spending money on the lawyers to defend against it. But in the meantime, superintendent cured the problem, so I didn't have to complain to the Attorney General's office. And Ms. Soveny falsely alleged that the complaint was dismissed, which is not true, because complaint was never filed with the Attorney General's office. The purpose of having the complaints to be dealt initially by the school committee is that avoid the going to the Attorney General's office. So that's the point. And
But when we
there was
believe the allegations to be false, then you have to take it to the Attorney General's office, because just sitting there and not doing anything is admitting something that the majority of us clearly feel is not true.
You don't have to, because maybe they won't escalate it to Attorney General's office.
Well,
how do you know that?
The path has been taken. We are here to vote on this. So is there further discussion on the letter, on the response?
I'm going to hold comment.
Okay.
So I would like to amend my motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a vote from the full committee on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. We are now going to allow the subcommittee to go into session so that they can take their vote on the complaint that is filed against them.
Motion to open the communication subcommittee, or the communication subcommittee meeting is in session.
A second.
Okay, so motion to approve the response.
Yes.
Okay, any discussion?
None whatsoever.
Okay. Should we vote on the response? Yes. Okay, so we've voted on the response. Motion to adjourn.
Did I hear like an all in favor? Say aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor? Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
We were told we had to follow this
Okay.
procedure for the vote to happen. Thank you.
That's on the tape.
That's on the tape.
That's good.
Okay, now we'll go into the agenda.
The students are unable to be here this evening. They had scheduled conflicts, and so I told Leslie when she asked that it would be all right if she not come, since they both had a conflict, and so we can expect to see them on our next meeting, which is the 1st.
Excellent, thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment. And signed up for public comment tonight, I have Ms. McNeil. If you would come forward. Hi, Pat.
And I'll be talking on my broken record on special education. But some good news. I want to invite all of you and all the parents of students in Stoughton to come to special education rights presentation that we'll be having on Wednesday, April 16th at the YMCA. I'm hoping that we can get members of the school committee, candidates, selectmen, youth commission to come and to hear. It's going to start at 6:30. Is when our usual meetings start, but I had been requested to have it on a Wednesday night for a change, so.
It was usually on our meeting night, so yeah.
Well, I didn't want to keep taking my vacation in order to have special education meetings, so it's been Tuesdays this year.
Okay.
But I did make it on the Wednesday for that date, and I think it should have a good showing of parents, but it's very important that we have this meeting, and other communities are also invited to attend. We'll be having an outside speaker at this time, and I think it will be good to hear some different perspectives than what we've been hearing in the last couple of years to get a good idea of what the special education rights and, what is supposed to be happening for the students.
Can you give me the date and time again,
It's
please?
the April 16th, Wednesday. It'll be 6:30.
Great. Thank you.
And the other thing I'd like to discuss tonight, I'm really having a hard time trying to do this in a positive manner, and I'm really trying. But I was very upset with some comments about level 3 schools and the blaming of a certain section of population of students for the level 3 status. I'm very upset about that. If we even look at the level 3 from the Gibbons School, all the students didn't meet target except the white students. So blaming one classroom for the decline in MCAS scores and for the level 3 was beyond, I don't even know the word to use. In the past, we have not, special ed students have been, parents have been not given information about specific classrooms because of privacy. We have not been given even to the information that we would be able to make the decision whether our children go into that classroom or not because of privacy. And to hear that they were blamed for, they are part of the student body, they should be having this same instruction. They should be getting the expectations for them to pass and doing whatever can be done for students to pass the MCAS should be done. Assistive technology, more time, whatever it takes, they should be getting that education. And to have the students with disabilities to be at a 43% where all students are at 71% in this is ridiculous. We have to stop separating the special education students from the rest of the student body. They are part of the student body, they are part of the schools, and they need to be treated that way. And it starts with attitude, it starts with thinking of them in that way and not taking them apart, and especially in a public place, or in a public manner, instead of when we should be looking at it in a meeting like this, deciding what do we need to do to make those scores better. I don't hear that happening here. So it was very upsetting to me, and I wasn't able to get here prior to this to talk about it in a more timely manner. And probably it was better that I didn't. All right. But again, I would like to invite everybody to the meeting, and we should be having some. Oh, the other thing is, I hope it goes on every school website. It only has been going on the district website, from what I can understand. And parents, if they get to use the website, might only go on their particular school and don't go on the district. Mm-hmm. It's very important that it goes out to all the schools. Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I say something?
No, there's no comment on the public comment.
Thank you.
Oh, school websites. Mr. Soares, I told you before the meeting, the same rule applies as long as the campaign's in effect, that you will not be given the time to have a public comment.
I just have a legit question.
No, I'm sorry that you know the rule, and that's
When does this suspension get over?
after the campaign, when you're no longer a candidate.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's all I wanted to ask.
Okay,
Is your name Suarez or Soares?
Swaj.
please.
Source.
Soares, thank you.
Thank you.
Waste of time.
Next on the agenda. Next on the agenda.
The next thing on the agenda is the format for, just a minute, I have to move past this. Oh, okay. The format for next year's superintendent evaluation. So you're in the process of completing the short cycle that we entered into, the version of the evaluation process we're moving to that is in line with the educator evaluation system of the state. It's the same as our teachers and our principals. But so the purpose of the short cycle was to line up the evaluation year with the election year. So
Sorry, I couldn't hear Dr. Lizzie. I apologize for breaking in.
almost no one ever says that. Being too quiet is not something I'm accused of a lot of the time. So I'll speak up. So the information that you got in your packet for today, since we're going to have the opportunity to do a full year cycle now, is the complete process as proposed for next year, which would involve the first step, which is a self-assessment and goal-setting process, which I would like to enter into immediately after the election, so that we end up having close to a full year. So we have time for a formative assessment in the middle and a complete evaluation cycle before next April. So if we can begin that almost immediately, and since there are some folks who are not up for election, those conversations could happen quite quickly. But shortly after the election, I would like to have, if anybody, for those who wish to do it, and this is something I did when I first started 5 years ago, is have individual meetings with the committee members to talk about what their goals might be and the kinds of things that they might like to see, and so on, and to take the information from those meetings into the self-assessment goal-setting process. So this is a longer process. It involves both goals and also the standards and some of the indicators in the standards. So if we can move forward with this process for next year's evaluation, then there can be a timely start to the first stages of it, which means that we can actually have a year evaluation in a year cycle. And this was the goal in lining it up the way it is. So it's taken a little bit of work to get to this point, but now we actually could step off and have this as our process for next year.
We will be looking to accept this process tonight so that
I can start it. Yes.
Immediately.
So
Absolutely.
I would start immediately on all the things that I could do in the next 2 weeks and begin the process in earnest immediately following the election.
Dr. Earl.
I don't know why we didn't do the complete process this year, because in the memo written by the superintendent says this is a short cycle. But and then I had a nice meeting with her today, and then I went back and checked my records. We actually completed the previous process on April 23rd. That was voted on the previous evaluation. So why did we wait till May? I mean, we let May go by, June go by, I mean, all these months go by, and then February 11th, superintendent came to us with goals, and then because the goals were sort of things that she had done in the past, and saying, well, this is a short cycle, so that's why we are doing it. So that's why my evaluation for this year reflects that my disappointment with that. So this is a process recommended by the state. But Mr. Ford told me that he made some changes to it based on teachers and principals. So would you walk us through what you changed with respect to state?
Well, we didn't actually change any of the state regulations. What we did when we brought this piece on board for our administrators, all right, so we have a process remarkably similar to what you have in front of you for our principals and for our Unit B people right now. And what we did is we took all the state regulations and the model contract language, and we tried to condense it so it was actually a much easier and straightforward tool to use for the person doing the evaluation and for the person being evaluated. It's much clearer. And so in going through it, we streamlined the process, made it simple to use, very straightforward. When you look at this process, this is an adaptation of what we did for our principals. And the hope is, when you, for instance, when the superintendent's evaluated, it's actually consistent with what we do for all the rest of our administrators, which is one of the intents of this whole process in and of itself. And so there's continuity between what happens with the superintendent, what happens with the principals, what happens with Unit B, and what happens with our teachers. And what you would see if you compared this to the teacher cycle, for instance, the teachers have a professional practice goal and a student learning goal. Right? The superintendent has a professional practice goal and a student learning goal. Now, the superintendent also has 3 district goals pulled from a district improvement plan, just like the principals now have an additional 3 goals pulled from the school improvement plans. So if you looked at this process and laid it side by side with the principal's process, it's very similar, and it's a process that builds upon the basic tenet, which is the evaluation of our teachers and our faculty. So we've tried to make it so there's a consistency of expectation from the superintendent all the way to the teachers. And ideally, in implementing this process, the superintendent's evaluation and all of her documentation, which is public, can then serve for a model for our principals and for our teachers. So that, in my mind, the example that we can hand to anybody in the school district as to what educator evaluation looks like would be, in fact, the superintendent's evaluation, which is public. So I'm hoping that what you see here and the things that we put together would then be that model for all to see and fairly and adequately represent the entire process to the community, to our teachers, and to our administrators.
Can I add something to that, though? Because I just wanted, in point of clarifying the difference, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the main difference between the two, though, is that theirs is a school year evaluation, and ours, by vote of this committee, is an April to April evaluation.
And a major difference, for instance,
It actually says school committee can start anytime.
But we voted last
I
year
know.
to make it this. So and that is why, in explanation to you, that is why it is an abbreviated process, because the documentation that needed to be in place so that we could do this, all of the district improvement plans, were not in place in order for these tools to be put together on the same schedule.
No, but if you're looking at this year, superintendent self-assessment, that could have been done regardless. It wasn't done. Goal setting, her own analysis wasn't done. The most important part is superintendent's annual plan. That could have been done last year, wasn't
But
done.
if we're asking that to be based on the district improvement plan and the entire planning process, then my question to you is, how could that have been done so that it aligned with what we're asking it to align with for all,
But
again, for all our
those
administrators?
are aligned with the goals. The goal setting is at the end, towards the, after this superintendent's annual plan and the superintendent's self-assessment is done. So this year we don't have that. But my question was, we are not talking about her evaluation this year, we are just talking about the next year.
moving forward.
Right, this process,
So the,
process for the.
my question to you was, how is the proposed, the stuff included in our packet different from what is provided in this document?
It's based
It is
on
the same?
It's based on.
Yes.
It's based on
It's
it.
based on that.
Oh, you told me it was, there were some differences.
No, what we did is when we did the evaluation cycle for the principals, we took all the model contract language, we took all the documents, and we went through and we said, what actually matters and purely reflects the law, and what is just extraneous stuff put in place, that the things that you would negotiate or the things that create extra work that don't necessarily provide a benefit, that just eat up time. Because our reality in terms of evaluation is the new process is great. It refocuses educator evaluation from something of accountability to something of building skills and having open discussions about improvement. That's awesome. But it's also incredibly time intensive. All right, and for our principals in particular, where you were evaluating a teacher every other year and doing 3 observations out the course of a year, to evaluating everybody is in the observation cycle every year, doing multiple evaluations, including, formative assessments at the middle, evaluating goals, doing self-assessments. I can't explain how much more time intensive the new process is.
I'm just asking about this one, not the other.
But that leads into my discussion of this as well. When we looked at what the principals did, we tried to make it so it's focused on what's important, but we don't have all this extra stuff because it just takes too much time. So we created and modified the process, not significantly, but enough to streamline it, to make it much more effective to implement. And we created a document that looks remarkably similar to what you have for our principals. Now, we found it worked really well. It was clear, it's easy to understand, it's a very well-defined process, documentation solid, supports it. We took that documentation, which is an adaptation of the model language, which is a pure reflection of the state law, and we adapted it for the superintendent. So what we've done, because one of the requirements of educator evaluation is consistency, all right, this is consistent with what we do for all the rest of our administrators, but it's uniquely adapted for the superintendent and her role as the leader of this district. So whereas with the principals, there's a professional practice and a student learning goal, and there's 3 goals embedded from the school improvement plans, the superintendent has a professional practice and a student learning goal with 3 goals embedded from the district improvement plan or a district professional development plan or whatever it might be. So you have that continuity across all your administrators in the school district and a common expectation. And that, like going into what I was saying before, that way the superintendent's evaluation, which is public, can serve as a model for our principals and for our teachers in terms of SMART goals, in terms of what evidence looks like, in terms of identifying indicators and meeting standards. It makes the superintendent the role model for the entire district, which I think is a huge benefit, is the major benefit of having her evaluation as a public document and in a public forum. So this is consistent with what we use for the principals, which is in turn consistent with what we do for our teachers.
The document that you're looking at, which is the thing that the state published, it is consistent with that. It has all of those parts.
Yep. That's why I'm confused. What is the difference? But I can't get a concise answer.
Well, I couldn't. We'd have to go through line by line, and I'd have to pull out the principles piece, which we generated, a year and a half ago. But an important piece of this, was absolutely the same, are the rubrics that are used for evaluation. So those haven't changed at all. And if you look at the categories for the rubrics between the superintendent, the principals, and the teachers, they're all the same categories, but with different indicators. So the superintendent's, the rubric used to evaluate how she does against defined standards and targeted indicators, that hasn't been touched and that won't be touched, because that's a common expectation for superintendents across the state. The interesting thing about this particular cycle, there's 2 pieces to it, as things stand. One are the goals that are defined for the superintendent, which would be discussed in school committee and established for her based on her own chosen goals and what's selected from our plans. All right, so we have a very targeted, superintendent-specific set of goals. The other piece is her performance against the standards, which is a standard set of goals for all educators and all superintendents across the entire Commonwealth. So you have a common set of goals for everyone, every superintendent in every district. And then you have the targeted pieces that are determined between the superintendent and the school committee that reflect her performance and the expectations of the superintendent in this community. So it's a very worthwhile process, and I think it's going to be very enlightening for people to see what actually leads into this.
Dr. Brown, you have a question, comment?
You finished?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. So, Dr. Erlen, this is, again, as I spoke before, this is the same exact format that we're using throughout the entire state. My superintendent has this. My boss evaluates me. I evaluate teachers. It's all the same exact thing. They made us shorten it, but everything in here is in here because I checked also. So nothing's missing. They're not missing a step. Everything here is what's supposed to be done. The rubric is the same. So it's not, nobody's taking anything out of this. I just want to make that clear to everybody, Mr. Soros.
Are there any other comments, questions from this side of the table?
Nope.
Okay.
This side is awfully quiet.
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Straightforward.
And Okay, so I guess we are looking to adopt this just as we adopted the abbreviated cycle, and you may complain that it is an abbreviated cycle, but it was what was agreed upon by the committee.
The whole committee.
That's all I can go by. So I'm looking for anybody interested in making a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept it as it is.
Second.
Discussion.
I'm going to vote yes with the assertion that Dr. Brown made, saying this is pretty much what the Department of Education is requiring, because they are pretty specific. I'm a little confused about Mr. Ford's statement that he streamlined it, so but if I vote yes, I can always ask for a reconsideration later on.
As long as it's early enough in the process so that we're not changing the process too.
Because you're saying, I mean, if it's the regulation, then why do we need to vote on it? Because it isn't the regulation. So that's why I'm confused.
I get you.
Thank you.
You always have to vote on it.
That's fine. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 It's unanimous. Thank you.
And now that you've accepted this, I will reiterate that I do want to go through the process of meeting with each person to talk about what your goals might be, what you think some of my goals might be. And one of the things that we can do, Dr. Urell, is go through the entire thing along with the state manual so you can see how all the pieces line up to what they're describing. That can certainly be part of that meeting.
Now, don't you start with self-evaluation on
Self-assessment.
your own?
Assessment.
Self-assessment?
It is right here.
Yes.
And it goes right in a circle.
So we want to see the self-assessment first, and then because just coming there, regurgitating goals is not going to be really productive.
Yep, the process is
so,
laid out quite clearly.
Yeah, I mean, so you come up with a self-assessment.
They did the work for us, basically. I mean, to a large extent, they've told us exactly what we have to do and where we have to go.
Okay, before we move on to the next agenda item, I did ask to collect the evaluation forms, the individual evaluation forms tonight so that I could work on the consolidated document. With that said, before you hand them to me, I am absolutely fine because I do not have time for the next day or two if people feel that they are not fine-tuned, and you can either hand them to me tonight when you know you can put them in my hands, or you can get them to me by noon on Friday.
Noon on Friday? Man,
I know I won't have
you're
time
creating
for it.
more work for us.
Well, no, but I want you
I
to
always
have,
wait till the last minute. So
Well, the
if
last
it's-
minute was now,
The
so the-
deadline is extended, then I spend more time on
the
it.
expectation was that you have the ability to give them to me now, but if in fact people feel that, because I want these
let me wait.
documents to be well thought out and have given people every opportunity. So you have that. But understand that you must get in touch with me and let me know how you're getting it to me, because I am working on Friday, but I will be home fairly early in the day, and that is when I will start the summary.
So noon Friday. High noon or regular noon?
Regular noon.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody feel like they want to hand theirs to me now?
I would say it's
Well, now that you extended, we'll wait.
But it's just like high school kids, huh?
Right.
Next on the agenda, I've asked to put on the remote participation discussion, because I did in fact have a discussion with, I passed on the selectmen's policy to Ms. Tate for her to look at to see if there's anything we needed to do in order to enact it, and she said no. She said we are clear to utilize the remote participation for the April 1st meeting. I checked with Dr. Gray as to what the best solution would be for this room. And he suggested, since we don't have really good video opportunities in this room, that I'd be looking at a phone bridge. And they actually have Polycom phone voice type of equipment that we can use.
Polycom?
But it's
like our speakerphone?
teleconferencing, but the teleconferencing version that has the multi-directional microphones.
That spaceship
Yeah.
looking thing.
And that is in fact what we would like to be able to do. I'm going to, if it is your will to be able to participate remotely.
Yeah, I would like to, but there may be some logistics issues. The best thing to do is, I mean, my number one preference is to reschedule it so I can be here in person, because I have problems on the phone. If you guys are not willing to do that, then I'll do my best to participate by phone.
I think we determined last time that between the FinCom meetings and all the other events that were happening.
Yeah, well, this is important, and I'm the only one with a different opinion.
Dr.
So
Earl,
that's
but I do want to remind you that we had this discussion at 2 meetings prior to the last meeting, and you didn't. If you had told us earlier that there was a conflict, we could have moved this cycle up.
Come on, that's not.
No, that is true.
That's not issue. That's not the issue. So how would you move it up?
We would have had I would have had collected the evaluation process forms earlier so that we could have had that meeting tonight.
Right. So I ask, first of all, on Friday to receive copies of the individual evaluations.
You'll receive I will make sure that you get them before you leave.
I would like to get individual evaluations and your assembly.
My assembly will
version.
probably not be done until right before the 1st, though, because that is my deadline.
That's fine.
But I will make sure that you have it in your
that's
hands
fine.
for the meeting.
That's fine. And I also like to get a video disc of the meeting.
Absolutely.
Because I'll be in a hotel room, people at a meeting, so this kind of gonna be distractive. And finally, well, there are 2 more requests,
Okay.
respectfully. One is because that is not a regular meeting date, I would ask that you keep the agenda light.
Yes.
And just maybe perhaps focus it to this topic, plus anything that's really emergency. And finally, I would also
Hold on, we'll discuss them.
Yeah.
I would also like to participate on the executive session part.
Okay. Let me do a copy of video. Okay. You will definitely have the copies of and again, my compiled version probably won't be ready until right before the
That's
meeting, but
fine.
you'll get a copy of it, and the individual reviews. You will get a copy of the video after the meeting. And the other thing is you want to participate in the executive session remotely. Okay.
Ms. Husseini,
Ms. Sylvanay.
I am, based on when I was chair last year, I think that the one public document is the composite document.
You're incorrect.
It is not correct. It is, I believe, all.
Are you sure? Just because I remember having a discussion
Actually,
with Glenn Kuchar about this.
Mr. Ford,
They're all public.
they're all public documents, yeah, and I remember reading that specifically in here. As for keeping the agenda light, we cannot anticipate what might come up.
Yeah, I was just talking about emergency stuff, I
absolutely.
understand, but this is the.
What we can do to make it work best for you is we can have your participation. If there are other things that come up and you'll see the agenda, you and I could discuss it beforehand if there are things that we could do, and then we can move the evaluation process to right before the executive session. So we're grouping the 2 close together to maximize your.
I just want to take. This is going to be the first time of trial of this
Absolutely.
policy in town, and I would like to take, because I think you're only allowed to do it once or twice in your lifetime, otherwise you get killed.
It's actually,
Something like
Say
that.
that.
the policy does state how many times you can do it. It's not once or twice in your lifetime, it's per term.
Per term.
But it's not once or twice, it's a number.
So that's why
apologize.
I want to work out this policy for the whole town.
And I apologize, I
To
didn't
its
bring the
fullest
policy
extent.
with me, but it is available on the town website.
Thank you.
It was very interesting, thank you. So I will test that equipment with Dr. Gray this week to make sure that everything's
Okay.
functional. On the agenda.
Madam Chairman,
yes.
I'm just looking at the Attorney General's guide with the open meeting laws regarding public remote participation. And it says in paragraph, remote participation may be used during a meeting of a public body, which I believe we are, if it has first been adopted by the chief executive officer of the municipality.
Correct.
So,
Which is the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
have they adopted that?
Yeah, absolutely have.
Okay, no, I'm just asking.
And it was
Is-
effective January 1st of this year.
Okay, no, I'm just questioning that.
And
I'm
it's
just
one of
look-
those odd policies where the town, or the Board of Selectmen actually has the ability to create a policy for other committees over which they don't have.
And I was just looking at I can't find anything in the Attorney General's write-up here as to
No,
longevity.
George, it says the selectmen can put further restrictions, which they did.
Which they did.
okay.
So it is in their policy, which is on the town website.
Okay.
Dr. Rizzi, next on the agenda.
Next on the agenda is a very brief curriculum update, which is really more on assessment than curriculum. So I asked Mr. Ford to speak for a very brief period of time on the park field test, which is something which we are required to participate in.
Thank you, Dr. Rissy. And as all of you know, Massachusetts is part of the consortium of states which is looking to implement the park assessment a couple years in the future. And it would in fact be the replacement for MCAS in the areas in which it covers. The state hasn't actually voted to officially adopt it, but we are one of the lead states in the consortium. And we are part of the field testing process, which has begun this year. And this is the process by which they start testing kids with the various questions and techniques that they're going to be utilizing to try to ensure the fact that the questions are valid and the way that they're interpreting the data is valid, so you can actually glean an understanding of what kids know. And use it as an affection measure of student growth, as opposed to simply giving a test and getting a result. So the testing window for the park field test actually opened this last Monday, and we're in a position where our 3 schools that are piloting will start and conduct the first piece of this next week.
Really?
So, yeah, we have 16 sections overall between the 2 different assessments that will be participating. And one of the things which we actually conducted today is we conducted the official infrastructure trial for the online testing component. We'd actually done a number of tests ourselves, but there's a piece that Park has set up where they'll send you like fake classes, and then you pump those classes through the assessment system. And I know Dr. Gray has scheduled that for this afternoon to ensure the fact that we're set up in terms of technology and ready to go next week. One of the things also is all the parents have been notified if their kids are in the testing sections. The principals took care of that. There were model letters sent out by Park and by the state that they adapted and sent out to all the parents, so all the parents are notified. And we do have all of our personnel trained, and all the principals, including myself, Dr. Ray, are all trained as test coordinators, test administrators, and we actually have trained other people in the different buildings that will be administering the tests. So in terms of giving these tests next week, we're 100% ready to go. The schools that will be testing next week are the DAW, the middle school, and the high school. We have 2 classes testing at the DAW, and we have 2 classes testing at the middle school. Both of them are paper and pencil tests.
Okay.
All right. The high school will have 4 classes testing next week, and that's actually the computerized version. And you can ask yourself, why isn't it all computerized? Well, I don't know if they have the capacity to actually have that many people, that much bandwidth worth of computerized testing at this point, the consortium itself. So I would imagine that's why they're keeping it light, and a lot of it's paper and pencil. And those would actually be remarkably similar to MCAS. So by the end of next week, we should be out of the testing window, and we'll have this first piece of the testing taking place. So and this particular piece is a performance-based component, and that's why it's administrated early in the year, and they're looking for skills as opposed to end-of-year knowledge. The second testing window actually opens on May 5th and runs through June 6th. We probably won't start any of that testing until after the week of May 19th, because we will conduct all of our MCAS testing first. And when we come back for the end-of-year testing, which is what happens at in the end of May, it's the middle school and the high school are the only 2 schools testing.
Okay.
The DAW only has this initial performance-based component. Then the middle school and the high school will follow up at the end of the year with an end-of-year component. And once that takes place, we'll have completed our requirements for this year. So it's a good lead-in. The middle school and the high school are both going to administer both the Park and the MCAS. We've cleaned data throughout, so we can look at that for self-analysis, and we can obviously provide that data to our data teams to take a look at things. And the process just looks very similar to what we do for MCAS. So we haven't had any glitches. We haven't really had any concerns expressed from anyone involved in the process. It just seems like it's going to be a very smooth implementation. It doesn't look like it's really going to complicate matters for us at all.
Are there questions? Mr. Dolinsky.
You said there were 2 classes at the DAW, 2 at the middle school, and 4 at the high school. What grade levels are being tested at the DAW?
The DAW, it's 4th grade math. So in the math test, it's just 2 sections. And what you find is, for instance, when you look at like the English test that we're giving right now for the performance-based, it's a 3 sections of the test. And if you were in 3rd grade taking the test, it'd be like 3 one-hour sections. As you work way up to the high school, it'd be 3 two-hour sections. They're all the same kind of components. For instance, they all talk about literary analysis, research simulation, and narrative writing, but the complexity of the assessment increases. And it's nice to see a consistent set of assessments that run all the way through. It's very similar to what we try to do, for instance, for Ames Web. So you have fixed points that you can compare year to year to year, all the way through your school district. So it looks good. When you look at the middle school, it's actually 4 sections in the middle school. There's 2 6th grade ELA sections being tested and 2 8th grade mathematics, all paper-based, run around at the middle school. In the high school, we're looking at Algebra 2. So that's our 10th grade math test. And we have 4 sections participating online this coming week. Sure.
Dr. Earl?
Deborah, I think, raised her hand first.
So I guess the question I have is, particularly at the DAW, will pulling the classes out of the MCAS testing stream affect our MCAS scores at all?
No, there's actually a hold harmless clause for a school if the principal elects to exempt the kids from taking both assessments. Mm-hmm. So it's going to have absolutely no impact. The DAW's a level 2 school this year. It'll be a level 2 school next year. Mm-hmm. So there's no potential damage to a school for having your kids take part in the park pilot.
Now, and then the other thing, particularly at the middle school, I mean, that's an awful lot of testing for those kids. Ugh.
It is.
I mean, how many hours is that? I mean,
it's basically 1 additional day of testing, or depending on whether you take the performance-based or the end of year. Okay. Really, the only place we see people doubling up, though, is going to be in the 8th grade math piece for 2 sections to middle school. Okay. So they'll get an additional 2 days of testing this year. Mm. But it's built in to take place right after the other testing windows, the MCAS testing windows. Mm-hmm. So it is what it is. It's the state's involved in bringing on the park. It's not really something where we have a choice. Mm-hmm. The data will be used to define a better assessment moving forward. Mm-hmm. So this is really just the kids in our school district playing their role and us doing our part in bringing on the next assessment, which ideally the benefits of it will outweigh what we're currently using. Mm-hmm. And we'll get better information on how we can improve instruction in the future. So.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Earl?
There has been a lot of talk about the mandatory nature of participation in park, and then it was mandatory and then not really mandatory. Is this any more mandatory than MCAS?
It is mandatory under the same laws that govern
same as
the
MCAS?
fact that MCAS is mandatory. Yeah, so you can't opt out. A parent can exempt their kids. It is what it is. When we look at it, we're going to try to be positive and say, this is us doing our role to bring in a system that will ultimately give us better knowledge.
Well, if the parent doesn't send their kid to school on that day, on the makeup day,
they'll just have to take it when they come back.
Throw them in jail.
Well, no, it's just like MCAS. If you miss one day, there's a day to make it up, and this is it's all the same requirements, and it is what it is. And ideally, 3 years from now when this comes online, it'll be a better assessment than we currently have. Mm-hmm. And the information that we get from it will be more useful to our teachers and to our administrators in making decisions that affect instructional practice, pedagogy, curriculum, and everything else. So.
And the other thing I heard is that Park test doesn't have science component, so if Park gets adopted, MCAS will still continue as a science.
That's true.
Component.
The Park is set up for math and ELA. It's geared towards the new frameworks that are put in place based on the Common Core. And the thing about science is science isn't part of the Common Core and it's not part of Park. And science is actually, we're looking at the next generation science standards being adopted by Massachusetts. And I would imagine, since those same standards ideally are going to be adopted by the majority of states across the country, Park could choose to pull that in. Mm-hmm. I mean, we'll see what happens. If that doesn't happen, MCAS stays into effect until something else replaces it. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to the same thing. The state is part of this process, and they've required that we take part in the field testing of the park. But they haven't actually adopted the park at this time, mm-hmm. although the timeline exists for adopting it. If they don't adopt it, MCAS just continues as usual.
Dr. Brown, did you?
Yeah, I just want to help out Dr. Earl. My school was also chosen to do the park, and I'm the administrator of it. The difference is we are mandatorily taking it, double testing for each. So we're doing the MCAS and the park. So to your words, it is a lot of testing.
Yeah.
However, it gives us a lot of information on how to, as he says, how to move instruction. Also, as he says again, is to embed the test. So we're like the guinea pigs in so many words, but in the long run, it'll work out for us.
Mr. Dillon.
Yeah, no problem. The results of the park, will they be published, or is it just strictly, I mean, when I say
Will there
published to
even
the
be
parents?
individual
I'm
scores?
curious to see
I am too.
what comes out of it. I mean,
Maybe not. I mean, early MCAS testing, the first shot through, they didn't even release individual scores.
we'll see what happens. I mean, they have a lot of options, and you know, we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily expecting
I'm not either.
to get a lot of information, because even with the current MCAS, when they released specific questions, specific information, they don't give us all of it, because they don't want to go through the process of piloting all the questions again. You know, it's when I used to teach in New York, you know, they give you a test with 50 questions. 40 were actual questions for the test, and 10 were actually pilot questions mixed in, and you didn't know what was what. So they were doing it all the time. Massachusetts, I don't believe, does that with their testing, or I don't know to the extent they do it, but they tend to be fairly stingy, so they don't have to commit time and resources to the additional piloting necessary for a question to actually be proofed and qualified for being used in this kind of assessment.
Ms. Oveni.
So when will the new science standards become part of the Common Core? Because having gotten a little peek at them, they're really exciting.
The new standards, well, they'll never be part of the Common Core.
Ever?
No, because the Common
Not even
Core...
a couple years down the road?
Well, the Common Core is independent of the science piece, and the science is the next generation science standards.
yeah.
They're currently, the Massachusetts version is out there for review.
Yeah.
I mean, they're taking their time in the adoption and evaluation, because I don't believe the state feels like they can give us that right now. In particular with, like for instance, for our school district, you know, we've aligned all of our curriculum to the new Common Core, but we still haven't gone through an assessment with it. So I mean, we're going to need to go through the assessment this year, look at our numbers, see how the curriculum that we put in place and how we adopted it actually stacks up on, like for instance, MCAS. You know?
Yeah.
And we're going to have to adjust for a year, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, really indefinitely, to ensure the fact that what we have is lined up. I don't believe the state, in good conscience, could give us an entire another curriculum, ask us to put it in place while we're bringing online the entire framework's based on the Common Core. It's
Too much.
the ELA piece in particular. It's massive. So,
Okay.
but it does look. It looks, in particular for the elementary, I think it looks very promising.
Yeah, it does.
Is it
Very
grounds the kids very well?
experientially based.
Yeah, it's completely process based.
Yeah.
You know, and
it's great.
we've had a lot of debates about how that's going to pan out in the high school, because I think most science teachers, myself being a former chemistry and physics teacher, you know, I don't know how you can move away from the content at the high school. I completely understand the value at the elementary school.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of instruction for our teachers, it really clearly delineates what goes on. It's nice that they clearly define what the spiral is in the middle school. But the high school, I think that issue's up for debate, and that might be where you'll see changes here in Massachusetts, based on the common period and all the different things that are going to take place over the next year while that question is open.
Okay, great, thank you.
And my only question is, you had mentioned the modules of the PARCC test being an hour, 2 hour type. Are they in fact timed test, unlike MCAS, which is open?
That is the difference between PARCC. What PARCC is going to do is they're going to establish exactly how long an average student would take to take the test. Then they're going to take that time and they're going to increase it by 50%, and that is the length of the PARCC test. Part of what they're going to glean from this pilot is how much time should we allocate for each one of these testing windows. And what you're going to see is starting at the elementary, they're going to take all the components are going to look similar, but it'll just be shorter testing windows for the elementary, and you'll see it get longer as you move up to the high school as the complexity of the test increases. But it's not an unlimited time test like we currently have with MCAS.
And for those students who currently have, I'm not sure what the language is, but
Accommodations.
Accommodations, thank you.
Well, if you have an accommodation, that would still come into play. And so if you had a student on an IEP in which one of the accommodations is extended time, that would apply to the PARCC test.
Okay. Thank you for the update. Moving on to old business. Under ad hoc committee updates, my only update is on the facilities committee, which meets tomorrow night. A piece of news that kind of goes hand in hand with the facilities is I got a note today saying that National Grid was stretching wire to the Jones School.
Finally.
Yes, finally, we have lived,
worked.
we have lived long enough to see
Wow.
the electric service being set up at the Jones School.
3 years later, we have power. Did you know that, Mr. Fitzgerald?
Just lose it now.
Yeah.
Wonderful it is.
It is great to hear. And that we are in fact meeting tomorrow. Also tomorrow is the vote of the MSBA on the next phase of the accelerated repair projects that we have before them. So we will have that news sometime tomorrow. And
There is an
facilities-
expectation that they will vote to continue with those
Right.
projects based on the processes we've gone through so
Great.
far.
The schematic designs that were submitted by the architect.
The
and-
Daw
correct.
windows, the Hanson windows, and the west roof.
Very good.
So they'll be moving on to the next stage tomorrow.
I did see Representative Kafka tonight, and he's planning on being there to
Oh,
make sure
excellent.
it's, yeah,
Excellent.
to see it through.
And that is the only ad hoc subcommittee, I believe, that's left besides wellness, which did not meet and will not now. for-
Facilities is tomorrow, right?
Facilities is tomorrow. Standing subcommittees, I don't believe any of the standing subcommittees met.
You're scared to meet.
So correspondence.
I have nothing.
My vice chair, Mr.
Nothing.
Dolinsky, has nothing.
Nothing
So-
been sent to us.
Got none. And
Nobody likes this.
on to other matters.
I do have two of those. One is, you've had at your place tonight this book, and this is a copy of the annual report of the superintendent of the Stoughton Public Schools. This is a component of the warrant book that goes to town meeting every year, so town meeting can get a sense of what the schools have been doing. Last year, we realized that it was kind of buried in the back of the warrant book, and that there are many, many things, I mean, as you can see, and we cut this down as far as we reasonably could, but, so this particular version is 50 pages. So there's a report in here from each of the different segments of the schools, each of the elementary schools, on the areas of curriculum.
Sorry.
I know, sometimes it's better to hand it out after you've
We're
talked
looking at
about it.
pictures, I know, we're bad.
The kids.
To be leaping
We're caught.
through it and not paying attention to what you're
Right.
saying.
I'm not going to look at it.
So what we did last year, and it was very, very popular, so we did it again, is we took the information that is in the warrant book, turned it into its own individual book, and illustrated it along the way, and formatted it so that it's easy for you to find the different sections. And so it talks about the various programs, the progress we've made in different areas, and I think it's really exciting reading, and it points up really nicely what it is that we're doing. So these are going to be available at town meeting. We're going to be giving them to the Finance Committee. They'll certainly be available to anyone who wants one from our office. And before we give them out on Thursday, I wanted you to have a hot off the press copy.
And I have a couple questions, but might I add, are they going to be available in a PDF form on the website for people?
I'm sure that that can be arranged.
I think that would be
I'll
a
talk to
nice
Diane.
source for.
It's Miss
yeah,
Dolan
Dolan's,
who
yeah.
has got this in her computer.
Excellent.
So we'll see if she can't figure out with Dr. Gray how to post it for people.
Dr. Brown.
Doctor, can you use this as an artifact for your evaluation?
Why not?
Yeah, you should.
Yes.
I think you should use this as an artifact.
It is our,
A part of,
it's our year's work.
Yeah, a part of the, Dr. Erlen, part of the evaluation process is that she has to upload some artifacts to show what she's doing as far as progress. So this may be, that's why I asked her, because she can use this as part of evaluation, because it gives
So
the
you're
whole
talking
thing,
about this year's or the next year's?
however she wants to use it.
Either. It's there for everyone to see. I think it speaks for itself. You can't read this without seeing some really amazing things that are going on in the school district. So whether it's formal or not formal, it's out there for the world to see, and I'm very pleased with the work.
Dr. Earl.
I like to have this, like a standalone volume, because if hopefully you'll print it out as a color
It's color.
copy.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the town meeting.
Right, the warrant. Well,
We should also think about putting this into the annual
report of the town.
This is the complete.
Right.
does,
I'm
yeah.
talking about maybe just have them as a standalone, but also into the included in the annual town report, because those get filed for future.
It actually,
this
just,
is really
just for
great in
clarification,
color.
I'm actually sorry I wasn't clear. So this is the material that goes in the book that you're talking about.
So it will be published
Yes.
there too.
It
Okay.
Already is.
Okay, good.
But the reason that we chose to put it in its own volume is for people who are interested, particularly in the school system. It can get a little buried in the warrant book.
Okay.
But the material, the actual text is exactly the same. And it does get filed every single year, and there is an archive of many years of the annual report. It's only in the last 2 years trying to make it more visible in the community that we've done this separate book.
Okay.
You look cute.
Thank you.
Mr.
Actually, they didn't take your picture.
Mr. Delinsky?
Yeah, on, since we're on...
Oh, are we still commenting on this because she had another other matter?
But we can comment
okay.
on...
No, go ahead.
Really comment
Ladies
on this.
first.
Well, if we could wrap this up, if
Are
you
we
like,
wrapped up
and
with
then move
that?
on to the other one.
Yes.
It's a different topic entirely.
Well, go ahead. You had the floor.
We're wrapped up.
So, very exciting thing happened today. The Stoughton Police Department has rolled out Smart 911. And we've made this announcement to our parents through our electronic backpack. And the teachers are going to have an opportunity to discuss it in faculty meetings, depending on when their faculty meetings are. They may have already. I've had an opportunity to discuss it with the crisis team, as have the Stoughton Police. So this is a partnership between the school district and the Stoughton Police. And the Smart 911 system, and I actually went on already and signed myself up today. So as some of you probably already know, when you call 911 from a cell phone, it's difficult, if not impossible, for them to tell where you are. It goes to the state police, and if you're unable to tell your location, your cell phone will not give your location the way your landline will do. So that's a problem with cell phones. But as far as how it relates to us in the question of school safety, if the teachers go on Smart 911 to register, and it's free and it's easy, then when you dial 911 on your cell phone, your entire profile comes up at the Stoughton Police Dispatch.
Great.
So if something were to happen in a classroom at the Daw School, away from the office, and a teacher were to have 911 on speed dial, they can press 911 and it will come up immediately on the police dispatch screen what teacher, what school, what room they are in, which greatly reduces the response time in any kind of emergency.
Emergencies, yeah.
We've alerted parents to this because for children who have cell phones, it's also really helpful if they have any issue on the street, outside of school, or anywhere, that they dial 911, their profile will come up, including the fact that they're a child and where they live and so forth. So we're going to encourage all of our teachers to register so that we know they have that added level of safety in their classroom.
Great.
And are giving parents and children an opportunity to do it as well. And I've already done it.
I'm excited.
And
Yeah,
so
I've done it too. Yeah.
Me too.
You did? So, my
Yeah.
question,
Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
so it's for the students, is it for the residents of Stoughton?
It's for all the
Everyone.
residents of
Yeah.
Stoughton.
Oh, I
all
need
the
to do
residents of
this.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Really?
smart911.com.
I gotta do this at home.
.com or .org?
.com.
Okay.
Smart,
cool.
what, 911?
Smart911.com.
So if I'm by myself, they can come get me.
And it registers, I mean, there's a ton of information. If you're a diabetic, if you have medical information, things that might be
Yeah.
pertinent to your situation, you can register your vehicle so they know that you're
Pets in your house.
Pets in your house.
Really?
I mean,
This is
there's
cool.
Yeah, you can
Tremendous
use
amount of
as much
information.
or as little of the profile as you want. You
Exactly.
can have multiple addresses if you want. I just put in my office address.
Yeah.
But you can have other people in your household. You can register them as well. And
emergency contacts, which I thought was nice
yes,
too.
and you can do as much or as little information as you like. So if somebody with a medical issue would use a lot more of the profile than like I did today. So
So I have a question. So if our students are outside this general area, it would still, how would that
It
affect them?
shows up on 911 for those police departments that subscribe to the Smart
great.
911 process.
right, and in
Which is a
Massachusetts,
growing number.
Yeah.
in Massachusetts there aren't. In other states, there are whole states. For instance, Tennessee, it's covered everywhere, and in Massachusetts, it's growing. But Chief Shastany is really forward-thinking, innovative, person, and he is always looking for the new things that are out there, the cutting-edge technology, so that we can add to our repertoire without waiting for other people to do so. So we hope that we're going to add to the small group of growing examples for
town of Stoughton.
towns
That's
all over
good.
the place
Yeah.
to do this. And we partnered with them because with 4,000 students and over 800 staff, we thought it would be a really, really important component to our school safety.
Dr. Hero.
So the when you dial 911, it goes to from your cell phone. It goes to state barracks. Now it won't. If you do this, it won't go to state barracks, or
It
it will
does.
still go to state barracks.
It goes to the state, and then it bounces right to the community that
Or
has
you
the
still have to
911.
talk to somebody at the state barracks, or it doesn't. So like if you need, like let's say you're in Cambridge, you did the smart 911, then it will come to Stoughton.
No, no. It'll bounce. And actually, I don't believe that it used to be that, and I could be wrong on this, but it used to be that dispatch at State Barracks actually answered, and then you had to ask to be put through. It now actually puts you through to using GPS location to the nearest police station.
Oh, really?
If you're in Cambridge and they don't have Smart 911, it won't. But you'll get Cambridge Police, which is where you probably want to get if you're in Cambridge.
Good idea.
And then it'll bounce you to the police station that has the same device, the same.
Well, as
smart-
long as you're in that
Yeah.
area. But
This is great.
very cool.
It's a
happy.
step. It's absolutely a step forward. As
Tell
far
my
as
Boston people
teachers,
about this.
teachers being safer in our classrooms, it absolutely addresses an additional layer that we did not have available
And
before.
people don't realize how unsafe it is in that classroom sometimes with 20-something kids and something happens and in a matter of them turning their head, something can happen. It happens all the time, especially a child who has an allergy or nut allergy and someone makes a mistake and brings a Snicker bar to class and the kid is having an anaphylactic attack and the teacher turns for a minute. This is good.
At home too. I mean, a lot of people
Yeah.
now they just use cell phone instead of a landline.
Yeah,
so.
this is great.
Absolutely. Any other matters, Mr. Dolinsky?
Yeah, on this, since we're talking all about good news, I'd just like to bring up something that was very good for us as a town. Our 6th grade girls travel basketball team representing Stoyak and Stoughton won the Division II Metro West Championship.
Cool.
They beat teams from like Ashland, Sudbury, and a couple of others, and we're very proud of their accomplishments. I don't have all the names of the
girls.
kids, but I'll make sure it gets directed to you at one point. But it's very nice for our girls, 6th grade girls. We got some future there.
So if you're watching, girls, yoo-hoo, we made it. Good.
Anything else down here?
All set.
Put in my plug for the Tuesday Jazz Band heading to state finals on
Yes,
Saturday at
yay,
11:30 in Framingham.
Framingham.
Yep.
State finals.
And along those lines, as we're speaking about other matters and other meetings, this is incredibly short notice and kind of a mix-up on my part, and I think a misunderstanding on a lot of parts. But as you recall, we had an executive session with the selectmen a short time ago. They had actually, before that, announced at one of their meetings that they were going to be holding an executive session for us and FinCom and themselves, a joint one, on March 29th, which is this Saturday at 9 a.m. When they, in fact, scheduled the one to meet with us, I thought that, in fact, superseded the Saturday meeting. It is not true. I was informed yesterday, the Saturday, the 29th, will still be taking place at Town Hall.
And is this with FinCom?
It's with full FinCom.
Is it executive
It's
session?
executive session, and it is actually very similar. I spoke to the chair of the Board of Selectmen this evening, and essentially covering the same as they covered with us, only with any updates that may have happened since. So that is,
And it's in the Great Hall?
believe so. We'll check. Yes, Mary checked. We will post that.
There's no room big enough to hold
Hold
those
all.
people.
Yeah.
So why don't we do superintendent's evaluation after that? I'll be here.
Well, this is
I'm
supposed to be
actually
done.
leaving at 10 o'clock because I have to be at
Dr.
the.
Brown says she couldn't come.
What is it? Dr.
You
Brown's
said-
going to be for this. I make it. Don't make
You're
my
coming?
Don't make my schedule. I made appointments to make it happen.
And I'm leaving this meeting at 10
So you
o'clock.
said
to
that
be-
I
you
made
couldn't-
I changed
The
it.
only reason we couldn't do Saturday was you couldn't
No,
come.
on Saturday, I am leaving this meeting at 10 o'clock to be at the
Change my
state
schedule.
jazz finals.
Right,
That is-
you have a plan. This is not actually your meeting.
This is not our
You
meeting.
have a plan for the
I
evaluation.
didn't know this meeting was happening until, like I said, last night.
You have
Okay.
a plan for the executive session, and it's all set.
And likewise, on April 1st, we have our meeting scheduled. Our meeting will start at 7:30, as the selectmen also have their regular meeting that night, and they have asked Dr. Rizzi and I to come and speak, I believe, on the budget.
Correct.
Or an
So,
update.
Madam Chair, that's going to be located where, please?
What time on April 1st?
7:30.
So our meeting will happen here at 7:30.
No,
The
Board of
selectmen will
Selectmen.
start their meeting at 6:30 to accommodate our
Okay.
speaking to them.
Right.
What about the 16th, Madam Chair?
Say that again?
What about the 16th? Something you said about the 16th, I wrote something.
There's nothing on the 16th.
Oh, great, thank you.
Wait, there's a meeting on the 29th,
29th, yes.
which I hope will be light.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, those are other matters.
And Dr.
We have financial warrants that will
First.
be circulated in the school committee room. We are going into executive session tonight for the purposes of collective bargaining strategy and grievance update. Both of those fall under reason 3. Do I need to recall that and read it for people?
Yes.
Yeah, so I heard a yes, so I'll do it. If you give me a second.
We will stipulate.
Do we have grievance update too, or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course, it's way at the beginning of my packet here.
Yeah.
Oh, you're wonderful. You have it for me, thank you. In tiny, tiny print.
That's the way my...
Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body. I should have it memorized by now.
I'm impressed George walks around with a
I know.
open meeting law in his pocket.
It's in my envelope.
Pocket version. That being said, I will... there
Make
are-
a motion
Thank
to
you.
go into executive session for the
second it.
purposes stated.
And I have a motion and a second.
Adjourn from the executive session.
There are no votes being taken. We will adjourn. Our next regular meeting is April 1st, 2014. And I will take a roll call vote. Dr. Bratton.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Earl. Walensky.
Yes.
Ms. Ovene. And yes for myself. Meeting is adjourned.